Yes, you already know what it is. It is the TRUENORTH.BET podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Graham, and I'm pleased to be with you all once again. Cannot wait to get into this. It's been a long time coming. I've been thinking about exactly what to do for this particular podcast. But once again, this is the TRUENORTH.BET podcast. TRUENORTH.BET, it's always a bet in the right direction. You already know what it is. I'm your host, Brandon Graham, and I cannot wait to jump right into course, all the content we have today, all the content we have over the past few weeks in general. We've seen NBA free agency come and go. We've seen the start of the CFL season. We've seen the NBA draft. We've seen Summer League. It's in that area within the middle of July, essentially, where you have a lot of, the baseball, Summer League basketball, but not necessarily the NFL, the NBA, those different leagues in general playing at this particular time, which is, of course, our primary goal or primary leagues in general that we have. But at TrueNorth.bet, of course, equality is all. We're always going to honor every single sport. Of course, it's always a bet in the right direction. Make sure you put your parlays, single bets down, whatever it may be, on certain teams on TrueNorth.bet, because it always is a bet in the right direction. You already know what it is. We're going to start out today. Oh my goodness, there's just so much to even talk about. Just getting here, having a chance to see CFL football being kicked off for the first time. It's in week 6 right now. So I know I prefaced it initially and I've kind of gone through, how certain teams have kind of started. But that was mostly in week 1, week 2. Now we're heading to week 6. It goes by just like this with a flick of the button. It just streams through. But the Toronto Argonauts are 3-0. They are at the top of the CFL. Of course, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are 4-1. The Montreal Alouettes are 2-2. And of course, then you do have the BC Lions, who lost their first game to the Toronto Argonauts, and they're 4-1 as well too. But they won against Montreal this past week. But CFL football is back. Nathan Rourke, who's the former quarterback of the BC Lions, he ends up going to Jacksonville Jaguars. He's going to back up Trevor Lawrence this year. I think he'll win that second backup position. He's that good. And literally to the point where he's so good that he had to get a look in the NFL. And of course, he is a pro. He obviously has earned his way to do that. And you have Vernon Adams Jr. stepping in for him in BC and still doing a formidable job, but at the same time throwing 6 interceptions. And I was at that game as well too. 6 interceptions against the Toronto Argonauts. Toronto Argonauts essentially brought everyone back this year on defense, on offense, with the exception of the quarterback position. Chad Kelly, the nephew of Jim Kelly, the Bills legend. He's starting for the Argonauts right now, went to Ole Miss in JUCO. He's backed up last year. He came in a time where it was really tough for the Argos to win in the Grey Cup, ends up winning the game for the Toronto Argonauts. So he's come out there and he's been balling his butt off. He's been playing and working with this offense. They have so many weapons. Of course, you have AJ Ouellette in the backfield. You have Harris in the backfield. You have all these receivers. You have Giddens. You have so many guys. DeMar Davis who's a legend out of Calgary as well. So you have so many guys you can throw the ball to. So many playmakers on Toronto. Dinwiddie, the head coach, gets inked for an extension. He's been the best coach that the Argos have had in years, of course, getting them their 18th Grey Cup in franchise history. Once again, it's a 150-year-old franchise, one of the oldest franchises in all of North American sports. So me as a media member, also as a season ticket holder, I'm always going to shout out my Toronto Argonauts. That's near and dear to my heart. It's something I pretty much grew up with, and you should always put money line on Toronto Argonauts because, of course, it will always bring you back some great returns that did to me last week when I saw them actually play. Not last week, but a few weeks ago against the BC Lions of Vernon Adams Jr. And so I always think that Vernon Adams has something to do with Montreal, but he doesn't. But Toronto Argonauts going into week 6, number 1 team in the East, will continue to probably do that against Montreal, who's 2-2. Cody Vajardo there. As we go throughout the season, I'll be highlighting certain players that I see making the jump, even probably to the NFL, the jump to whatever it may be, and just some outstanding players in the league. And one thing you have to understand about the CFL is that, yes, the game is different than NFL. It's different than NCAA. But it challenges you, it humbles you, and it's still a great product. It doesn't matter if you're watching on TV. It doesn't matter if you're at the game. I still have a great time because I'm also watching a great team in the Toronto Argonauts play when they're all healthy. But it's still a great product, and it's still something that's super entertaining to myself. It is 3-down football. It's a little bit more challenging, a wider field, more opportunity for big plays. Of course, you do have the ruse in the end zone. When the ball gets in the end zone, you got to bring it out. Last week, the Edmonton Elks lost because their returner just didn't understand it. In late game situations, you have to bring the ball out of the end zone in order for it not to be, 1 point, and they end up losing 12-11 because they gave that 1 point at the end of the game, which is a total gap. And it's something that you lose that game for the team, and it's something you got to live with for the rest of the week. That's tough. That's tough. And hopefully he can bounce back from that. But Edmonton's 0-5 because of that. Probably would have got a chance to beat the Ottawa Red Blacks in that game as well, too, initially. But that was just a very, very tough game to watch. Ottawa Red Blacks. Essentially, we're playing against them. I'm looking at the list. No, it was the Saskatchewan Roughriders, green teams, winning 12-11. But that was definitely a great game to watch. Really interesting. Even Chad Johnson, some other legends were shouting out the game, saying what an interesting game in the Saskatchewan game. Remember, Chad Johnson and many other NFL pros like Terrell Owens have played in the CFL. They understand the game. They still think it's a good product. It's summer football. Nothing's better than summer football. So watching those guys go at it, watching the play of great players like Jeremy Acklin, so many guys that are just nasty players in general. Zach Collaros was the quarterback for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I think the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are another favorite to go to the I was going to say Super Bowl, the Grey Cup. I think it'll be Toronto and Winnipeg again in the end. Who knows who will win that game? The defense for Toronto is great, but it's so hard to beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers because they do such a good job. Zach Collaros is pretty much the best player, the best quarterback in the league. It's come down to because he's super competitive and just a great player. And he continues to show with his team Winnipeg that there are going to be problems, and they really, really are. But switching gears now from the CFL to the NBA draft, we saw Victor Wembanyama go number 1. We saw Brandon Miller of the Charlotte Hornets go number 2. Scoot Henderson go to the Portland Trailblazers, and so on and so forth. Many great players in the draft. Of course, Chet Holmgren sitting out the year after being drafted by the Oklahoma City Thunder, and now being, pretty much essentially this being his rookie year. He's going to be a dark horse for the rookie of the year. Victor Wembanyama in his first game had around 12 points. Just a really pedestrian game. He even came out and said himself that he didn't really know what's going on because it was such a fast game. He was kind of, running around there, didn't necessarily know what he's doing. But at the end of the day, you got to think about it. He went from France, finishes his league. France came to America. We had the Britney Spears incident. If everyone knows that Britney Spears incident happened, he hasn't really did that draft. Had to do all the media carousel, podcasts, so on and so forth. Then had to start playing basketball. He's been through the gamut. But that's what happens. It's a media circus. There's millions and millions of dollars in the media. There's millions of dollars in the game being marketed. And that's essentially what the job is. That's your job. And even listening to Draymond Green and Paul George talk about their job, because they were talking about Nikola Jokic pretty much saying after winning the championship that no one in any of their jobs, no one ever loves their job because it's still work at the end of the day. And if you really think about what Nikola Jokic said at the press conference during the finals, Draymond Green and Paul George said, the job sucks, but I love playing basketball. I don't like the media stuff. Everything that comes with it, I don't really like, but I like hooping. I like the fact that we get access to this and that. Once again, they're talking as millionaires that have a lot of money. They're talking in that respect. They're talking about the game in general and everything that comes with it. But they're still NBA players. But when you really think about it, does anyone truly love their job fully? Like, I think I love my job. I love doing this. I love doing the things I do in my life. But of course, there are times where I'm like, I hate the fact that I have to do this. And I think really think about it, because Nikola Jokic said, anyone that tells you that they love their job is a liar. And you really think about it, there's always going to be something you don't like about your job in general. Right? Even NBA players who make tens of millions of dollars can say they hate their job as well too, which means that, I'm pretty sure more people do as well, right? Especially if you're going to corporate, Justin Yee. But anyways, other than that, back to Victor Wembanyama. His last outing had 27 points, 12 rebounds, was 9 of 14 from the field, 12 points from the line, super efficient, was getting around. Greg Popovich inks a 5-year deal to stay as the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. It's going to be a rebuilding process for them, but of course he wants us to see out the career or the start of the career of Victor Wembanyama after being in the game and pretty much arguably being the most successful coach of all time in Greg Popovich. But Victor Wembanyama is getting out there and playing well in his second outing. Koulibaly, who was his teammate in France, playing well with the Washington Wizards. My favorite players, one of the standout players in this entire summer league event, and I'm watching most of the games in summer league. It's super interesting to see the young guys, even the second year guys, go out there and try to prove and make a name for themselves and develop. Jabari Smith Jr., of course, I'm going to talk about the Houston Rockets really soon, but Jabari Smith has shown that he can fill up a bucket out of Auburn. He's nasty. He's playing. He even hit a shot, looked at James Wiseman, who was guarding him, and said, hey, this man cannot mess with me at all. So he's going to be a problem seeing what he's doing. But after having that year in the league, being more acclimated in as a professional, getting the opportunity to play in this tournament with guys that are not used to NBA basketball coming out of college, you have to assert your dominance, especially if a secondary player. You have to assert your dominance. That's why I'm a little bit disappointed that guys in the Raptors haven't done that as of yet, but I'll get to that very soon. But Amani Bates out of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Sharif Cooper is the guard there. Sam Merrill, who's a sharpshooter for them. They've been at the top of summer league. They've been killing it. Amani Bates, I knew from high school. I think from high school. Amani Bates is kind of like Cooper Flag. And I'm going to tell you all right now, pay attention to who Cooper Flag is. He's 16 years old right now. He's going to be probably go to Duke, go to a really great university, and he's going to go top 1 or 2. And it might be one of the first Caucasians that go number 1 or 2 in a very long time in the NBA. But he's nasty. He's going to be great. But Amani Bates was just as dominant in high school, out of Detroit, playing his butt off there. Then goes to university, went to the University of was recruited to go to the University of Michigan, declined that. So Michigan State, sorry, with Coach Izzo, declined that, goes to Memphis to be with Penny Hardaway. Doesn't really show it because you're in Conference USA. They're not really getting as much East side, more Eastern viewers. He doesn't really show out too much, but he plays well. But now he's in the league. He has a little bit more freedom. He's always been a bucket. He's just a baller. I even saw a caption that says, there's some guys that are basketball players, but then there's hoopers. And Amani Bates is a hooper. So watch the Cleveland Cavaliers. Amani Bates has been killing it. He's doing great. Sam Merrill is a great shooter. He kind of looks like JJ Redick out there just stroking it. Literally, fire for that. But stroking it out there, playing great, shooting the ball really well. Sharif Cooper is the guard in that team, playing extremely well. I think Larry Nance's brother is on that team as well too. And there's some other guys. Mobley's brother, Isaiah Mobley's playing well. So that team's a problem. They have a lot of young guys coming up. So seeing Amani Bates being put into the fold with Darius Garland, with Donovan Mitchell and company, I think it's going to be a problem. He's going to be fighting for some minutes. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are another team that are just slowly elevating through the draft, through some trades or even signings that they have. Of course, Donovan Mitchell, don't know if he's going to be there for a long time, but he's there and they have a team. They're much better than the Raptors right now. They're a team that are going. The Raptors do choose Grady Dick. They do have Marquise Noel out of Kansas State, Grady Dick out of Kansas, 2 Kansas boys, but Kansas guys. Marquise Noel is from New York, but those guys playing, they've been 0-2. They're struggling in the summer league right now. Grady Dick has to get his game going a little bit more. He needs to get his shots up. It comes down to who you have around you. If you have a guy like Sharif Cooper that's spreading the floor with the Cleveland Cavaliers, getting the ball to Monty, getting the ball to all these guys, and you'll score more. But once again, Summer League is more about development. The team that wins, great. Sacramento Kings have won the Summer League many times. Does not translate to the real league. You just have a lot of young guys that can play well at a certain point. Doesn't really equate to anything. But the fact that they've grown, and so essentially the Houston Rockets are playing really well. Cleveland Cavaliers, the fact that there are guys that are playing right now and their coaches are getting a chance to see them, either getting a chance to be in front of a nationally televised audience. Of course, many of them have played in front of nationally televised audiences in college, but doing this on the NBA scale is a different breed. And, a lot of their teammates are coming out to see them as well, too. So seeing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about Houston right now after this. Oh, that's much needed, but Houston Rockets end up signing Fred VanVleet, end up signing Dylan Brooks to contracts that are equate close to more than $200 million. Fred VanVleet getting 130 million essentially with everything that he's doing. Of course, he did sign with the Raptors 2 years ago, but got out of that. And he decided not to take the extension and decided to go into free agency to see what the market was because he's interested to see what his value was. But him going to Houston, a lot of people are criticizing Emeka Oka, Ime Udoka, my gosh, Emeka Okafor. Ime Udoka and these guys giving them a lot of money, but you have to do something. You have to do something, right? You have Jabari Smith in the fold. You have Jalen Green. You have Porter. You need some vets around there. You need some guys that are going to be, no BS, no nonsense players. And Dylan Brooks and Fred give you that. Don't know if you're going to compete, but Fred got paid, the first undrafted player to get that much money in free agency. He's gotten a lot of money. He's gotten pretty much close to $130 million. And he deserves it, right? Fred's done a lot. He won a championship. It's a 3-year, $128 million contract with the Houston Rockets, including $83 million guaranteed and an annual salary. If you really were to break it down, a guy that's born in 94, a lot of money, right? He's annual salary and will earn a base salary of $40 million while carrying a cap hit of $40 million and a dead cap of $40 million as well too. So 3-year deal. He got paid close to the max. He's balling. Like he's got it now. He's been an unrestricted free agent. He's with the Rockets for 3 years. Who knows if they're gonna ship him? That's gonna be a lot of money to ship him, especially if he gets injured. That's one thing with Fred, right? Fred was getting injured late. He's playing through injuries, but he's a guy that he's gonna guard. But how is he gonna really match up as your number one guy? We really think about it. Fred will be a great 1-2 punch as he was with Kyle Lowry. But for a number one guy, that's a lot of money. And I know a lot of people are saying it's a lot of money, but that's where the NBA is going. We're always going to say it's a lot of money for these certain guys, right? Everything's gone up from the TV deal they got, so on and so forth. Dylan Brooks got a lot of money as well, too. They're rebuilding. They're building something in Houston. They're building something in Houston. They want to get up and be contenders again. They got Ime Udoka in the fold. He ended up choosing Houston over Toronto to be a coach. We got Darko Rajovic in Toronto, but two teams that are going at different paces. So Fred did say his entire stomach was knotted. He didn't really. It's one of the hardest choices he has to make. He was looking to even come back to Toronto, but it happened within just in a split of a second in a day where he said, "Hey, it's a change of scenery." He said, "quote unquote," I quote him. It was really tough. My stomach was in knots trying to figure it out because there was no wrong choice. And those are the hardest choice to make when there is no wrong way to go. He's an NBA All-Star. He's a champion. And now he's heading to the Houston Rockets and he's grown. So he's solidified. It's a dream scenario for a player to solidify yourself as an undrafted guy, better yourself, making that moniker super, super relevant. You're the one that made that moniker better yourself. And now he's making $128 million over 3 years. Incredible story. Kudos to Fred. Shout out to Fred, man. Like, that's the dream. That's when they call it Canadian dream, American dream. That's the dream right there when it comes to athletics. He did it. So you cannot even fault him because he's a great spot up shooter. The Raptors have to look for that shooting somewhere. Have to find that somewhere. They did ink Dennis Schroeder, McDaniels as well too. But now there are talks of Pascal Siakam being on the market, and there have been many times where Pascal's been in the mix of being in trade rumors. Same with OG. But this really feels like he's being shopped around by Masai and Bobby Webster, which is for Raptors supporters going to be kind of scary, but it had to happen at some point because you end up 9th in the East. You end up losing in the play-in tournament. You got Scotty, you got these guys, but with Nick and everything that happened, there must have been some internal issues. There must have been something there needs to be a change. And of course, Masai and Bobby are going to address that. Don't know if Pascal's going to be traded. He wants to stay in Toronto. I think he should stay in Toronto. I think that's something that he's can build on if you bring a few guys go over here. But from what happened in 2019 with the NBA championship to now, 4 years later, my goodness, what a change. There's only a few guys that remain from that iconic picture of like the Marcus Gasols and the Kawhis and the Kyle Lowrys. There's only a few guys that remain now. A lot of guys are getting their money. A lot of guys are out there. A lot of guys are just out of the picture in general of the NBA. And Serge and Marcus Gasol. Serge is still around, but to see the changes in franchises after winning championship, we're really experiencing the full gamut of it right now. It's really, really interesting to see what Wagwan, what really happens as we go. But NBA Summer League is super exciting. Obviously taking a look, a lot of these guys, a lot of the Cam Whitmores, the guys that are really showing out and showing up, right? Grady Dick has to really cement himself with the Raptors. The Raptors now, they're young guys. Marquise Noel, great story in the NCAA tournament, but is 5'7". Can he be a starting guard in this league? No one knows. No one knows. But I think he can be a really good pro. Grady has to find himself bending quick. Like he's made it more strides. Of course, was nervous in his first game and made more strides in the second game. But once again, we're not going to judge these guys until you get into preseason. He's a personality. He's a guy that is going to have some flair. But we're looking, hoping that Masai and Bobby get this right very soon, because you never want the Raptors to be in the trenches, right? In the projects at all, right? You want them to continue doing what they're doing, and that's the bottom line as we go. Another guy that's been in the trenches for a long period of time and now wants to get out of it, almost like get away from the darkness. Nothing wrong with darkness, but like Bane, is Damian Lillard. Okay, Damian Lillard has requested a trade from the Portland Trailblazers. He's requested to be traded to Miami. He wants to be in Miami. Don't blame me. Miami's great. I'm about to go there really soon for vacation. Cannot wait. But, seeing now that Tyler Hero might be the one on the chopping block, Tyler Hero goes to this Twitter, takes out the Miami from his handle. He's a little bit salty right now. That's normal. That's normal what it is. He's still part of the team, still part of the franchise, but they're trying to bring Dame over. Dame, Jimmy, Bam will be dangerous, but Bam's probably got to go too. If you really, the Portland Trailblazers is now having Shaedon Sharpe out of Canada, out of essentially Ontario, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simmons. The young guys they have, they're not like the guys they have there are all young, and Portland never gets any free agents ever. They're not going to. They have to build through the draft to be competitive. Similar to the Raptors have to build through the draft to be competitive, unless there's a big name guy that really wants to come here. But we really haven't signed anyone that's big, or the Raptors haven't signed anyone a big free agent in a long period of time. But the Portland Trailblazers have been really adamant and really vocal about having a deal for Damian Lillard that will really suffice. That would satisfy them on all fronts. They want picks. They need to rebuild. I'm not going to take anything less, and that's good on them. So I see Damian Lillard possibly not getting traded for a long period of time. I think it's going to be curtains. It'll be a while till he gets traded, because he's stuck in that franchise and he stayed for so long. So when it comes to loyalty, yeah, he's loyal to that franchise, loyal to the entire team. But seeing Scoot getting drafted, I think he gave them an ultimatum. He's like, hey, if you want me to stay, you got to trade for something nice. You have the second pick, trade for something nice now. We want to actually try to do something. They decided not to. They opted to draft Scoot Henderson. So gave him the choice to be like, this is your out. Now you can go. And we'll see exactly what happens as it continues to build, right? But I see it always ends up happening is that whenever a player wants to go somewhere, they end up usually going. You see KD go to the Suns. You see a few. Well, you see Bradley Beal signing with the Suns. You see a lot of these guys that get a chance to actually go to their destination. They usually take it, and they usually happens. So I think it's going to happen. I think Dame will end up miraculously somehow in Miami. I think that the franchise should do right by him, because he's done so many things for him. He's the greatest Portland Trailblazers of all time. If you really think about it, he's gone to the Western Conference Finals, has gone to the finals, but Clyde Drexler's and all those other guys, Rasheed Wallace, there's a lot of guys that are great Blazers, but Dame, it has to be at the top. He has all the records. He has everything. He's done everything for that franchise. Dame has to be at the top. And yeah, essentially right now he's in limbo waiting to be traded. And that's essentially where we're waiting to see where he goes. And I'll have an emergency pod. I'll have something on TikTok, something for that very, very soon. But the NBA is slowly coming back, especially with the NBA now. We have NBA Cup. NBA Cups are really great. What I'm saying right now, my take is that it's going to be something good for the league, because it doesn't have to interfere with the league. It's more so part of the schedule. So every team is being played into a group of 3, all 30 teams, depending on their ranking from last year. It's just a mix. And then they play each other. So 2 games at home, 2 games at away. And the team with the best record ends up in another bracket, and they end up competing and playing other teams essentially that have made it out of their bubble, out of their bracket, out of their division, you can even say. And then they battle, and of course, then the top 4 teams go to Vegas, and it's an entire thing that the NBA is making them millions of dollars on again, because they've put so much money into the glow. They put so much money into Vegas in general when it comes to the basketball scene. December 9th is when you'll have the finals for the NBA Cup in-season tournament, to make it more mirror the AAU format that you see right now, right? So you see in high school, all teams have to go to PCHAM, all teams have to be in the EYBL circuit, sponsored by Nike. It's most of the players in the NBA right now have been in that tournament. The best of the best are always in that tournament, unless you're a guy that's from overseas, so on and so forth. But making this tournament in the middle of the league, it's gonna, I guess the NBA sees that as growing revenue. They see it as something interesting in the season, that so it's not necessarily a lull, just game to game going. I think it's a cool idea. I think they've really thoroughly examined this process. They thoroughly examined exactly what the ramifications would be. They're going to try it, and there will be a champion for the NBA Cup. But imagine being the NBA Cup winners and then losing in the NBA Finals. All that matters in the NBA Finals, right? That's all that matters. But I guess this might give them something else to be happy about. Who knows? Who knows how the players will respond? But the championship is what you really play for. I don't think down the line, 20 years from now, we will be saying, oh, LeBron James, two-time NBA Cup champion. It's NBA Finals MVP. That's what holds weight. This is more just to make the viewership a little bit more interesting and competitive for the players down the line in that middle of the season. But with injuries and everything that happens, who knows how that will happen? Who knows if load management will take a place in some of these NBA Cup games? It's going to be so interesting to see how teams react to this NBA Cup format. And I can't wait. I even kind of want to book my ticket right now to go to the December 9th games that are happening fairly soon. But anyhow, this is the TRUENORTH.BET podcast. Of course, we'll talk a little bit more about the CFL. We'll talk more about the NBA, NFL as it comes, as it goes. Of course, this will be a full-on NBA, NFL pod as we go, as we continue. But a lot is riding on this NBA Cup. A lot is riding on what we're seeing right now. Of course, sports is great. TRUENORTH.BET, we want you to always make sure you're putting your parlays, all of your single bets, money lines, spreads, all on TRUENORTH.BET, because it's always a bet in the right direction. I'm your host, Brandon Graham. Want to make sure that you all never forget to keep balling, and we'll see you soon.